الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Prophet Ismail replied, "Do as you're commanded, and if Allah wills, I will be steadfast."
لا إله إلا الله.
Alright, today I'm going to talk about Sabr. Now, whenever the word Sabr comes into mind, what do you think about? Isn't it patience? What else? Anyone?
Thinking.
Thinking, yeah, thinking's one. Perseverance, that's another. So all of these are, you could say, like connotations of sabr. They're an umbrella term, right? But they don't convey the full meaning of it. Now, you may ask, like, what is the full meaning then, right? Now, I'm going to paint a picture to all of you. So, scenario number one. Say, a person, right, he loves the thrill of climbing a mountain, right? He loves, like, running all the way up to the top. He loves, his body slowly breaking down. And then afterwards, once he reaches the top, he just says, Alhamdulillah. Well, he's not Muslim, so he says, yes. And, afterwards, think about how hard he had to work in order to climb that mountain. His legs were breaking, his lungs felt like collapsing, but ultimately he persevered to the max in order to reach it, right? All for that thrill. Now, scenario number two. All right. Now, say a person who wants to get promoted. He wants a higher salary. All right. So but then his father passed away. Obviously, the natural reaction. He's full of sorrow. Any son would have that feeling for his father. He's in grief. He feels demotivated. He can't work at all. He feels paralyzed. But then his boss needs him. He needs him to finish that project, right? And in doing so, if he finishes that project, he'll get that promotion. So he sucks up that feeling, that grief, and just endures it. And eventually, he finishes that project, and then afterwards gets that promotion. Now, scenario number three. Say a person who can't stand the corruption in Parliament, right? And he lives all the way in Scotland, right? He sees corruption going on every day, right? And he's an activist, so he flies down, actually let's just say a train. He goes to a train and then travels all the way from Scotland to London. That's like, what, a 13-hour journey. Think about it, he's traveling 13 hours. And then not only that, right, he has to have the travel costs. It's quite expensive to get from Scotland to London. And then even then, he has to come back to work the next day. So he's tired, spent a lot of money, spent a lot of time. All for what? A certain feeling that there's injustice going on. That's the reason. And we've seen in the Palestine protests, a lot of people come in for that feeling, to satisfy that feeling of doing right. Now, all three scenarios I painted a picture of, right, are those examples of perseverance? Let's think of it. It sounds accurate, right?
Yeah.
But the true answer is no. Now, you're probably wondering, right, how can they not be examples of perseverance, right? Like, come on, those are like true definitions. Oh, let me correct that. These are all like definitions of sabr, right? These all sound like sabr, right? And you're probably thinking, how can they not be the definition of sabr? Now, let me paint one more scenario, all right? Just one more. Now, say you just returned home after, doing work, doing da'wah, being a good Muslim. You've worked for 10 hours. Let's say you went home, and you went outside at 8 o'clock a.m. and returned home 10 p.m. You're obviously tired, right? But then let's just say your mother or your wife, they come to you and then start asking, for a small favor, like doing the groceries, or say, sorting out the finances or something. Typical, husband or son stuff. But you're very tired. You've just returned home, like, after an exhausting day. And then, like, she's being very pushy, asking you, you have to do this. You've been away for so long, you have to do this. And then you get irritated and angry, right? But ultimately, the believer remembers Allah. He knows that anger is haram. He knows, say for the mother, that Jannah is below your mother's feet. So he controls his anger for the sake of Allah. Now, why is the last one an example of sabr? Do any of you know the difference? The last example is only for the sake of Allah and living within the halal and haram. Now, I want to clarify again this concept of sabr. Is it, as someone who possesses sabr, is it only about making dua and then just, being inactive, just like waiting for the results? Is it just sitting back, relaxing like this, and then be like, Ya Allah, I just, made dua to you, and now I'll just patiently wait for the results. The results will come, I don't have to do anything. Well, clearly not. That's not how Allah's sunnah works, Allah's way. Now, this is what a believer must do, right? Not only does he pray for the results, right? But he also has to actively seek it. He has to plan, he has to prepare. And let's just say someone who's been unemployed for so long, right? So, you know what you have to do when you're unemployed and you need your risk? You have to first do your research, plan, prepare, work hard, and then afterwards, once you get that interview, you have to, again, prepare even more, seriously think about how you're going to pass that interview, right? And then afterwards, even then, you still have to work hard in keeping that job. That believer, not only made dua to Allah, and not only planned and prepared, and then once he got that job right, he had to wait a very long time in order to get it. He had to keep faith in Allah, that Allah has a plan for him. Those three characteristics. Now, I'd like to give you 3 examples of sabr within the Quran. Now, the Prophet Ayyub's story. Now, who was Prophet Ayyub, right? Prophet Ayyub was a man who had all of it. He had everything that a man could want. He had wealth, he had lots and lots of land, in his possession. He had health, he was able-bodied, he had multiple wives, he had multiple children, he had a high status within his community. So think about it, this guy, he has everything, right? And then one day Allah took everything away from him. He no longer had his wealth, he lost all his land, his crops died. He no longer had health. He had a disease growing on his skin, spores popping out, and he lost his place in society. He was isolated, thrown out of his house, his community, and into the wild. Now, what would the average reaction be? The average person, right? They'd scream at Allah, saying, "Why did you do this? I've had all this blessings, and now I no longer have it. How could you do this, Allah?" But what is the believer's response, and what's the example Allah wants to show? Now, what did Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam say when he lost everything? He said, "Alhamdulillah, Allah gave me all this prosperity for 80 years. And then in those 7 years, he had suffering. But he appreciated both the blessings he had in those 80 years and what remained, which is his wife. And he patiently waited for the mercy of Allah, that eventually he'll be lifted from his suffering." Now, I'd like to now give modern examples of how this could play out. Say for the example of a person who owns a business, right? He's worked so hard in order to develop his business. He's put in so much effort. You know, having a business is halal, right? So like, you know, this sticks within our definition of sabr. Now, like, he worked so hard, putting years and years, and then suddenly that business declined. It collapsed, you know, and in doing so, he also lost his wealth. Now, this person, you know, if he were to say, you know, oh, how could you do this to me, Allah? And this is something that, you know, could happen to any of us. Like, we could work on a project with so much effort, right? Or we could be, you know, say for our jobs, right? We could have all this years of being employed, having prosperity, and then suddenly we lose it all, right? And then afterwards, you know, it all falls down, it all collapses. Now, what do we say in that scenario? We still say Alhamdulillah and have patience in Allah's mercy. Now, I'd like to give another example that we see every day in the news with Palestine. And this, I'd like to give you the story of a woman, right? She's worked, you know, sorry. I'm remembering her story. This woman in Palestine, she lost everything. She lost her home. She lost a lot of members of her family. You know, think about it, like losing your home, your family, you know, having nowhere left to go, you know, having nothing left. Now, what would you do in this situation? Her child said, what will we do? What's gonna happen to us? But then she berated her child, saying, quiet. This land is so spacious, it's so vast. And so there's opportunities everywhere in this earth. That is a clear example of sabr. That no matter if it's the good times or the bad times, when you are high, when you are low, you know, you will always appreciate what Allah has given, and you will always have sabr, that there are opportunities in the future that Allah can give. Now, I'd like to give another example from the story of the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet Noah. Now, Prophet Noah, like this story actually relates to a lot of us. We've endured something similar, so a lot of this will probably remind you. Prophet Noah, he did da'wah for 950 years. Think about it, 950 years of doing da'wah to his people. You know, he was isolated from his society for doing da'wah. He was pressured by the nobility in the society, continuously pressured. And not only that, after doing da'wah for so long, so long, like 950 years, what results did he gain? He was only able to convert a handful of people, just a small amount in the end. So you could say he had little results. But was that the purpose of his da'wah, for the results in the end, to gain, you know, to convert all of society? Yes, that was the intention, but what was the greater aim? You know, when the elite in society asked, you know, questioned him, oh, you only do it for power, that's why you're doing da'wah. But he replied, no, my reward is from Allah and Allah only. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam endured not only, think about it, persevered and endured, not only pressure from his society, from the elites, and persevered for so long, and even with the minimal results, the reality of knowing how little results he gained, he persevered through all that. Now, how does this relate to us in our time? Do you guys remember the Palestine protests we did? You know, think about it. We went to like all the mosques in this area, right? We went to Good Street Mosque, we went to Al Rahman Mosque, we went to Regent's Park Mosque. You know, we put so much time, all our evenings doing that. And then literally on the day, right, you know, we had to wake up early. We had to, you know, enjoy the cold weather. It was raining that day as well. We had to travel from all the way across like the Egyptian embassy. We had to travel across Westminster, right? And then after enduring that long, what was the result again? Well, the truth is that it may not look like much, right? But in the eyes of Allah, it is a lot. Like to put that much effort in, right? Only for the sake of Allah, only in order to pursue His deen, to establish justice, and in doing so, we gain the pleasure of Allah, because ultimately that's the end result, and that's the meaning of our perseverance in those times. Now, I'd like to give one final story. The story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? He was sleeping, and then one day he woke up and he found out that Allah commanded him to sacrifice his own son. Now, at first, as a father, what would you do? You'd be hesitant, right? You'd think, how could I sacrifice my own son? Now, it's understandable that a father would be hesitant to sacrifice his own son. So he asked Prophet Ismail, he asked, Allah has asked me to sacrifice you. Prophet Ismail replied, do as you're commanded, and if Allah wills, I will be steadfast. Now, what can we ultimately Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail were steadfast. They were decisive in their actions, and when the time came, Allah replaced Prophet Ismail alayhi salam with a sheep. We know this story. But what was the lessons that we could gain from this story? How is this an example of Sabr? Now, let me tell you, in order for Prophet Ismail and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, in order to really, make that decisive step, right? Both of them obviously were, one was about to lose his son, the other was about to lose his life, right? Think about it, right? What characteristics is needed in order to achieve that much dedication to Allah? It is decisiveness, to commit to Allah's deen, no matter if it may look bad for you, or it may harm you, or you may lose something precious. That was a commitment necessary, that decisiveness, that steadfastness in order to achieve the result. Now, how can we compare it to our times, right? In our lives, right, we run into so many different situations that we have either, persevere, not compromise our Muslim faith, or, be pressured by the dunya. Say I'll start with simple examples. Let's just say shaking a woman's hand, or you're in a meeting and then you have to pray salah and you're gonna miss it. Those are more simple examples. Or say you have a job opportunity, but that job opportunity has haram elements in it, like let's just say for gambling, or for it's in banking. Now, do you really have an excuse when the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded to sacrifice his own son, and he went with it, he persevered? Now, what excuse do you have in those situations? Think about the small amount of pressure, the small amount of adversity there is in those situations, and then think about the great adversity he had to go through. Now, I'd like to not only highlight this example as an individual, but across the situation in the Ummah today. There's times when our leaders and our generals, they see what's going on in Palestine. Our brothers and sisters are being massacred. There is oppression going on across the Ummah. And what do they say? When they know the correct solution, they know the correct solution and what has to be done. But what did they say? That it's impractical, that it's not pragmatic, that the results are unachievable. All these different excuses. But I'd like to go back to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. When Allah's command came to him, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and said, Allah commanded him to sacrifice his own son. Did he or did he not commit in the end to implementing it? Because he knows that Allah's command is absolute. So when they know what Allah's command is, to uphold justice, to wipe away oppression, what is their excuse? When the solution is so easy that they have the power and capability to do it. But in the end, their fears get in the way, the fear of the result. But ultimately, that is up to us. That is up to the leaders, the individual. Are we going to decide if we're either going to bow down to the reality, the pressures of the reality, or are we going to persevere to follow Allah's deen? Now, I'd like to conclude there with five. First, to make sure that to really make sure that you all got the message. I'm going to summarize the five concepts I'm trying to convey. Number one, sabr isn't just perseverance and patience. It only applies within the bounds of Islam. Ultimately, if you're going to have, if you achieve sabr, right, it is only when you live by Islam. You can't have sabr, say like if you're running a gambling den, or if you have a haram job. That is not sabr. Sabr only applies within the bounds of Islam. Number two, sabr isn't just waiting patiently, sitting back, being inactive. It's acting. It's striving to achieve the results as well, as well as having faith in Allah. Number three, no matter if it's the good times or the bad times, you must be patient with Allah. Regardless of being the high, the low, the average, you should always have a faith that Allah, regardless of what befalls you, you must always be patient with Allah. Number four, no matter how long it takes, no matter what the results are, no matter what pressures there are from society, you must stay committed to following Allah's way. And then number five, there is no excuse for not committing to Allah's command, regardless of the pressures.